Welcome to the Spotlight series. Don't just survive, thrive. Most of us have experienced challenging times, now more than ever. The key is how we choose to respond, whether we merely survive or thrive. My name is Nicola Steele, founder of JJP Talent Solutions, an Australian IT recruitment company. With over 20 years' expertise, I provide insights on how you can transform your career to the next level. However, we are not just our careers. We are spouses, partners, parents, friends, etc., with a variety of needs and wants. In this podcast, I talk to a diverse range of experts from different professions, such as finance, law, psychology, and health, to provide insights on how you can survive and thrive. I don't have all the answers. However, collectively, we can instill hope, clarity, and inspiration. I hope you enjoy listening. I'm delighted to introduce Lorrie Brook, a mediator, former family lawyer, and founder of Family Law Services Online. Lorrie, thank you for joining me on episode 10 of the Spotlight series, Don't Just Survive, Thrive.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So, Lorrie, please could you tell me more about you and what you do?
So I'm what we call a family dispute resolution practitioner, which is some fancy words to basically say I'm a mediator. And the role that I play is to support families, primarily parents who are going through separation, to transition from that personal relationship that they once had into more of a co-parenting relationship.
Mm-hmm. So keeping it more friendly, or at least cooperative, I guess, as best you can.
Yeah, as cooperative as possible, as amicable as possible, and focusing on that long-term future goal that you are both raising children together for a long time to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And for the last few weeks, we've all been social distancing, self-isolating, and have been at home with our partners and families for much more extended periods of time than normal, which for most people isn't ideal. However, if you're in a difficult relationship with your partner, this must be really troublesome. So what should couples do if this enforced time together has made them realise that the relationship is now untenable, but they don't really have any option of moving out because of the self-isolation restrictions?
It's an interesting time, the COVID-19 environment, isn't it? It's one of those times that I think is telling for a lot of people, and we're faced with circumstances that we've never had to confront before. One of the biggest factors that I've been talking to my clients about is communication, and it's about communicating not only how we're feeling and the difficulties that we're seeing personally, but also about communicating what's not working for us. And sometimes it's as simple as, I just need some space. I just don't need to see or to speak to anyone, and finding that quiet corner in your house, in your yard, somewhere where you can escape by yourself to have, whether it be a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a glass of wine, and just to take some time out for yourself. It's to get through that emotional anxiety and that personal angst that builds up being confronted and surrounded by the same people day in and day out. It takes a lot to realize that we need some space, we need to breathe, and we need to identify what our own personal triggers are so that we can take a step back and help those personal relationships, I suppose, just settle down so that we're not breaking out into World War III. We're not pretending that things are great when they aren't, because that just builds up the emotional anxiety, pretending that everything's okay. But to identify that sometimes taking a step back, looking at what we need at that particular point in time, and working through that as best as we can on a personal level. Does that make sense to you?
It makes complete sense. And I think even if your relationship's okay. You still need that space. Whether
Absolutely.
it's in the house, whether you go for a walk, just breathing sometimes to get you through that. And it is difficult for everybody. I was thinking more of people where they weren't in a happy place before this all happened. So it's obviously much more acute.
I think when you weren't in that happy place before this happened, we can start to take those little issues to heart a lot more.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's the words that the other spouse might be saying, and that starts to trigger off that emotional anxiety for us. And if you're already in that difficult place, you start to take on those issues more and more, and it starts to build and build and build, and to eventually you get to that point where you're going to explode.
Yes.
And so when you can recognize that, and you can recognize that, yes, they're saying that, but in this circumstance, I don't need to react to it, or I'm choosing not to let it bother me. That's going to help you in the current situation. It's not going to be easy. By no means is it going to be easy. But we're all faced with a circumstance that we've never had to confront. So it's identifying what those triggers are for us.
Definitely. And I think as well, you said about not playing the part of being happy, 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 everything's fantastic, Mary Poppins kind of approach, that you suddenly reach a point where somebody's left a coffee cup on the side and that turns into World War III because you haven't had those communications. And also, if couples, for example, have made that decision that they do want to separate and they were about to start those proceedings, but then suddenly COVID happened and they don't have any options, what suggestions do you have for that, or best course of action?
It depends on, I suppose, the relationship that they're leaving. If it's a safe space, now is the best time to have the conversations about what the future is going to look like for you. And it's going to be different if you've got kids together, and that you need to have that ongoing co-parenting relationship, to whether it's simply just a couple who are going to part ways and are never going to see or have any type of relationship moving forward. But if you can, to utilise the time that you've got together to say, well, we need to sell the house, or this is what's going to happen for the kids' schooling, to start to formulate your own plan as to what life is going to look like past COVID-19. You've got time that you would never necessarily have beforehand. And especially for those people who are facing the situations where they're going to have to sell a house, use the time to get together and actually do those joint little jobs to get the house ready to sell in the future, so that one person's not burdened having to do that themselves.
And so at this stage, that would they bring somebody in like yourself to facilitate those communications? What would you recommend?
It's a personal issue. If you can sit down together and have a conversation, and you can work through the issues in an amicable way, there is no need to bring anyone else in. You can do it together. But if you want to have somebody else, an independent third party, to just help bring those discussions back if they start to get off track, because, often people might start to head down the emotional path of, you did this, you did that, and start to get into the blame game. And that's not going to help solve the practical issues that you need to confront from a separation perspective. Certainly a mediator is somebody that you should bring on board to help do that. And that can be done just like we're doing today, online, by telephone. It doesn't need to be done face-to-face. It doesn't need to be done in person at all.
Yeah, I guess it's when the emotions are heightened, particularly caused by the self-isolation as well, which makes it very difficult. And there was another set of people that I was thinking of as well, couples that are already divorced or separated but are co-parenting, and they have got the self-isolation role self-isolation rules, so children living in different homes, what options do they have?
So the number one thing here is the court's made it very clear that co-parents with orders in place or an agreement in place should be sticking to that agreement or to those sets of orders. COVID-19 in and of itself is not a reason to withhold children from spending time with the other parent, provided it's safe to do so. I mean, COVID-19 does raise issues where you've got parents who are living in separate states or a distance apart, or where they might be they may have been working on the front line, and for health reasons it's not practicable to spend time with your children. There's a myriad of reasons as to why that might not happen in the current environment. But if it's not happening, this is the time where the parent with the child, so the parent where the children are living, needs to step up and needs to make that extra effort. They've got the responsibility, I suppose, to show the child that they're trying to, as much as possible, facilitate that ongoing relationship. So whether it be by video chat, phone calls, letters, whatever it might take for that child to be able to say, hey, you know what, we're maintaining contact with mum, dad, even grandparents, aunts, uncles, all of those significant peoples in the children's lives. This is the time to do it.
So again, it's all about communication and maintaining that open communication there. And also you are the founder and director of an organisation called Our Children Australia, and the co-founder of the Separated Parents Orders Training Programme. So please tell me more about these organisations and the overall goal.
So the overall goal for all of the services that I offer is essentially to make separation as easy as possible for the children. I'm a firm believer that, the act of the separation is one that's done between the adults or the parents, but the impact is felt the greatest down at the grassroots, and that is with our kids. It's every parent that I work with is always there to tell you that what they're doing is in the best interest of their children, and the other parent isn't acting in the best interest of the children. There's always that I'm better attitude. But sometimes, in my view, it can be hard to see the forest for the trees. It can be hard to see that there can be the need of flexibility, and that maybe somebody else does have a better suggestion or a better alternative to what it is that you're proposing. And at the end of the day, that all comes down to communication, and that's what these two programs or services are about. So Our Children Australia is a communication platform for parents so that they have a safe space to communicate. They can talk about their children, what's going on for them. They can organise what time they're spending with each other. And then the Separated Parents Orders Training Program is all about helping parents transition that personal relationship into a co-parenting relationship. At the end of the day, the focus is always what's in the children's best interests. How can we make it easier for them moving forward?
Absolutely. And I think also you've got a free ebook that you can download from the Our Children website. Is that right?
That's right. So it's called Together and Apart, Your Guide to Co-Parenting. And for those who have just separated or are looking at what can be included in any parenting agreement, that book will walk you through the 1,001 different options that you have, and just start to, I suppose, get you thinking about what's going to work for you and your family. When you're going through this process, it's really important that you're coming up with an agreement that's going to work for your family, not an agreement that your next door neighbour, that your best friend, that your sister's cousin reached or got ordered through the court process. Each of these agreements need to be, or you have the opportunity to make these agreements individual and unique and specific to your family circumstances, especially when you do it together or through a mediation process. You go to court and you have an independent third party who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your family, and you're asking them to make orders that you then have to stick by, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Absolutely. And one size doesn't fit all. As you say, each situation's totally unique.
Yeah.
Well, Lorrie.
Absolutely. I mean, no one is ever going to know what your children have on in the afternoon, or, how long it takes you to get home from work. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yes. Well, Lorrie, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me about what is a very sensitive subject. I'll share the details about the free ebook and your websites and everything on the show notes. And have you got anything else that you'd particularly like to share?
I would just say, remember that, everyone is going through this. Everyone is feeling the angst and the anxiety of being cooped up together. So take time. Don't be afraid to say, I need some space.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're looking for career advice, your next career opportunity, or to grow your tech team, then please call me, Nicola Steele, on 0499 773 546, or go to our website, jjptalent.com.au. The Don't Just Survive, Thrive podcast is part of the Spotlight series, which includes the YouTube channel Spotlight on Software Development. If you want more insights into the software industry, particularly tech startups, then subscribe to the Spotlight on Software Development YouTube channel. Thank you for listening. Until next time.